able to draw closer to God and build up our faith. But there is one problem with our definition of self-control. For our understanding of self-control is about our ability to self-master our desires, to self-master our actions, to self-master our reactions, and self-master our emotions. For self-control is about man's ability to self-rule himself or herself. That is, to be over his or her life, in which they are able to control every aspect of their nature. And this requires to have a measure of strength and determination, which will allow us to properly control our nature. But herein lies the problem. That with self-control, this whole idea of self-mastery, and where we come into trouble is that we cannot actually control our nature. And when I mean we can't control our nature, that is, we have trouble controlling our nature, which has been corrupted by sin. Our sinful nature causes our desires, our emotions, our reactions, our actions to become extremely powerful things in our lives. And in some cases, our sinful desires tend to be some of the hardest things for us to gain mastery over because they are so intoxicating to us. We find them to be very pleasurable. We enjoy the feelings that we get from when we are doing the things that are not right in God's eyes. And so our strength and our determination will ultimately fail despite our valiant attempts to gain mastery, to gain control over our sinful desires. As the writer of Proverbs 24:10 says, if you fall under pressure, your strength is too small. Faltering is what happens when we no longer have the strength or determination to master our sinful desires. That is, as the writer of Proverbs says, that when we get under the pressure, when we recognize sin is at work and is pressuring us to do something, that our strength eventually will give out. Our strength is too small. And when our strength gives out, we allow ourselves to enjoy the desires of our sinful nature, to enjoy the desires of the flesh. And that all it takes is just the briefest of moments for our strength to falter. And then we are once again falling back and doing the undesirable things in which we didn't want to do in the first place. And this always happens to us in some way. It always happens to us somehow in our lives where we just get to the point where we just give in to sin and to temptation. A great example of this for me is freshly baked cookies. And my wife is a fabulous baker. It's really hard to say no when she makes freshly baked cookies. Doesn't matter what they are. I will eat them if they are fresh. But I always tell myself, I am only going to eat 2 or 3 cookies. That's all I'm going to do. Doesn't matter that the batch that my wife makes ends up making about 24 to 48. Doesn't matter. I am just going to eat 2 or 3. But the anticipation of the cookies being baked gets to me. You can smell them in the oven. Then she takes them out and puts them on the cooling tray, and you can smell them cooling in the air. My mouth begins to water. And I begin to think, I can go get some now, but I have to wait. They're a little too hot. Then after they cool off a moment, I go in, and I'm like, all right, it's time. Fresh cookies. They're nice and warm. I grab 2 or 3, bite into them, nice and gooey and warm and chewy. And then I say, that's it. That's enough. I'm done. I've had my 2 or 3 cookies. So then I leave the room and I go about doing other things, but you know what? The air still smells heavy of freshly baked cookies. And then I say, no, I've already had my 2 or 3. But the smell is intoxicating. In fact, I still have the taste of the chocolate chips in my mouth. And then I say to myself, okay, I'll go back for some more. I walk in, I'm like, I really shouldn't have any more, but you know what? 1 or 2 wouldn't hurt. Shouldn't cause any more problems. My wife has made 48 or so. So I grab 1 or 2 more. Eat them, go back to doing whatever I was doing before. Lo and behold, I do this several times. In a span of a little over 30 minutes, I find out that I eat probably 6 to 8 cookies. Even when I try to self-control my desire to eat the cookies by saying, I'm just going to have 2 or 3, the smell gets to me. And I desire to go back and have more good cookies because my wife makes really good cookies. I don't want her to think that they're bad cookies. But then that's also the temptation speaking, saying I don't want to make my wife feel bad by just only eating 2 or 3. But see, that's the problem when we try to self-control and self-master our sinful desires and our nature. Is that we're all going to be faced with desires in which we really want something. Where we really want to do something. Or we have something that which we crave. And then we're going to find out on several occasions just how self-controlled we really are. Or better yet, how self-controlled we really are not. Because we think that we can constantly control our sinful desires and we can control the temptations that we face. We think that we can master them on our own. Through our own strength and ability. But this kind of goes back to Romans 7, where Paul says several times how real the struggle is to master yourself, to master your sinful nature. In Romans 7:18 through 20, Paul says, "For I know that nothing good dwells within me, that is, in my flesh. For the willing is present in me, but the doing of the good is not. For the good I want, I do not do, but I practice the very evil that I do not want to do. But if I am doing the very thing I do not want, I am no longer the one doing it, but sin which dwells within me." You see, the sinful nature of our flesh is right there with us, trying to get us to